Yes.
I'm not quite sure how to approach this, but I guess I always wanted to say this to a psychologist, the old line, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
Mm-hmm.
And there is, I think, a problem with addressing the issues in such a way that doesn't acknowledge the kernel of truth underlying the fears of people who are trying to grapple with these situations, often in very serious ways. And it's, again, sort of a long conflict with many different circumstances over different times, and how people got to be the way they are, is a product of the conflict in addition to being a source of the conflict, and a source of further conflict. And so when you find yourself confronted with certain forces that have significant constituencies on the Palestinian side, who don't look like they're the kinds of people who are, in principle, capable of reaching the kind of accord that would have any kind of durability. Then you have to, in some way, it seems to me, speak to this in a way that it acknowledges some of these profound difficulties. What people will, for example, point out is, as Sapir mentioned, the suicide bombings inside of Israel actually spiked during precisely the periods when the Israeli government was the most forthcoming. Many people make too much of that point, but it represents a reality that there is a resistance to the kind of solution that acknowledges anything about the current structure of the situation, and it's on the one hand understandable that people will want to reject a kind of peace accord that looks like it's going to sell them out. And there's a good argument for why any likely peace between Israelis and Palestinians at this point will be on such terms that is a fundamental affront to justice for Palestinians. But at the same time, the political ideology that is associated with that kind of view on the Palestinian side is a political ideology that doesn't represent a kind of affirmation of the equal dignity of all humans, on some universal basis. It is itself a deeply ethno-nationalist and in parts, also deeply fundamentalist conception that is quite prepared to license a sort of violence that then produces support for the worst kinds of policies on the other side.
Right, and you see those on both sides. And the sort of the nationalist, fundamentalist perspective, which is prone to violence, is not going to work. When you listen to and you read his writing and listen to Desmond Tutu, he'll say the reason that we succeeded was that we were able to do it with a minimum of violence. And nobody believed that would happen. But that's why it worked. And what you're seeing now is a lot of work being done, again, on both sides, on nonviolent resistance. The Kairos document is one of those. So the Christians are in Palestine, trying to lead the way. Hopefully there will be Muslim leaders who will come up and who will be able to articulate a theology which will also be in support of nonviolent resistance, legitimate but powerful nonviolent resistance. That's why the New Testament in early Christianity, the Jesus movement, speaks so powerfully to this situation, to my mind anyway. So that's part of it. And there's a lot of work being done on nonviolence. Politically, theologically, liberation theology, all of that is very, very important. You mentioned something about the psychology of it. And again, I'm just going to say something sort of very, very simple and probably naive. People talk about you need to acknowledge at this juncture, down the road, Palestinians may need to face this, but at this juncture, you need to acknowledge what is the Jewish experience and Jewish sort of existential reality that motivates us. And if you ignore that, then you're ignoring something profound, important, at your peril. My specialty was post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay? I know that if you had individuals or communities that have been traumatized, either acutely or cumulatively over time, what we think we know clinically is that the way to recover is to somehow process the experience and open up to dealing with the real injury, which is the loss of trust. And I know that the treatment of choice is not to take that person or that community, put them inside a fortress, surround them by guards, protecting them, and saying to them, it's not safe out there, we will protect you. It's not the treatment of choice that prolongs the pathology and then it perpetuates it over generations. That's what's happened. The whole Holocaust industry, Finkelstein's work, Avraham Burg, who's now written about the pathology that's now become embedded in the whole Zionist experience and the Israeli experience, they've got it right. We'll never recover from the Holocaust if what we do is put ourselves back in the ghetto. That's what's happened. And again, I feel as a Jew I have the right to say this. I see this happening in Israeli society.